The afternoon sun beat down like a furnace as I pushed my rusty lawn mower across the front yard, sweat soaking through my favorite tank top, the one with the faded logo from a 5K I ran years ago. I was just trying to keep my grass from looking like a jungle when I saw her storming across the street, her finger already pointed like a loaded gun, her face twisted in a mix of fury and self-righteous indignation. Karen Mitchell, our neighborhood's unofficial HOA dictator, was on the warpath again, and I was her target. She stopped so close I could smell the peppermint mocha on her breath and started ranting about community standards and property values. Before I could get a word in, she marched onto my lawn, her pristine sneakers trampling my freshly mowed grass, and ripped my small American flag right out of the flower bed. The metal stake screeched against the rocks as she waved it in my face, like evidence of a crime. That's when we both heard a low, unmistakable rumble of an engine. Karen froze, flag still in her grip, as a patrol car pulled up to my curb. It had started as just another blistering Saturday in Willow Creek Estates, the kind of day where the heat shimmers off the asphalt and the air feels like a wet blanket. The thermometer had hit 90 to F by noon, and I'd thrown on my go-to tank top a faded gray one with a tiny rip at the shoulder. Before heading out to tackle the lawn, for the 3 years I lived here, this was my routine: mow in neat diagonal lines, trim the hedges, water the petunias, all while dressed for comfort in the sweltering heat. But for the last 6 weeks, Karen Mitchell had been watching me like a hawk from her perfectly manicured lawn across the street, her disapproval practically radiating through her double-paned windows. Karen wasn't the HOA preside. Not technically, but you'd never know it from the way she carried herself. At 55, with her sleek auburn ponytail and yoga outfits that screamed, "I paid $100 for these leggings," she crowned herself the queen of neighborhood aesthetics. She was the kind of person who'd measure your grass blades with a ruler and leave a typed note if they were a 1/4 inch too long. To her, anything less than a polo shirt and khakis in public view was an assault on the very soul of Willow Creek. She lectured neighbors at the community mailbox about their sloppy flip-flops, leave post-it notes on porches about unsightly Halloween decorations, and lately, she'd zeroed in on me in my tank top wearing lawn-mowing ways. It started subtly, or as subtle as Karen could manage. I'd catch her standing in her driveway, phone raised like she was filming a true crime documentary, snapping photos of me pushing my mower. I'd hear her loud phone conversations, strategically timed for when I was outside, where she'd complain to some poor soul about the decline of decency in our cul-de-sac. She'd toss around phrases like visual pollution and community erosion, while staring straight at me as if my tank top was single-handedly tanking property values. I tried to brush it off, focusing on keeping my lawn pristine-edged, mowed, and watered to perfection while she fixated on my wardrobe like it was a personal affront. Then came the official complaints. Karen started flooding the whole board with grievances, each one more theatrical than the last. She claimed my tank top was offensive to family values and creating a hostile environment for children. She argued that my attire was inconsistent with the upscale image of Willow Creek Estates. One particularly creative complaint suggested my tank top was part of a broader pattern of disregard for communal harmony. The whole board, bless their overworked souls, responded with polite but increasingly exasperated letters. Board member Sarah Jenkins stopped by one evening with a bottle of iced tea as an apology, explaining that there was no dress code for homeowners on their own property, and that Karen's complaints were being dismissed faster than she could type them. Sarah even laughed, saying Karen's emails were starting to read like a soap opera script. But Karen wasn't deterred. If anything, the board's dismissals fueled her crusade. She started syncing her yard work with mine, finding excuses to be outside whenever I was. She'd prune her already perfect rose bushes, check her mailbox 3 times in an hour, or sweep her spotless driveway, all while glaring at me like I was defacing the national monument. I'd wave cheerfully, which only seemed to make her angrier. My neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, a sweet 70-year-old with a penchant for knitting, warned me that Karen had been asking around about my habits, trying to dig up dirt. Mrs. Callahan thought it was hilarious, saying she hadn't seen this much drama since her soap opera days in the 80s. The tension hit its peak on that scorching Saturday. I just finished mowing the front yard and was chatting with my neighbor, Mr. Rodriguez, about his new vegetable garden. We were standing under the shade of my maple tree, sipping water from mismatched glasses, when I noticed Karen's kitchen curtains twitch. I'd taken off my tank top to wring out the sweat gross, but necessary in the heat when Karen burst out of her house like she'd been launched from a cannon. Her face was redder than the tomatoes Mr. Rodriguez had been bragging about, as she was moving with the kind of purpose that suggested she'd been planning this moment all week. Mr. Rodriguez saw her coming and muttered, "Oh boy, here we go," before retreating to his garage, claiming he needed to check his sprinklers. Karen didn't even wait for him to disappear before she started shouting. Her voice echoed across the cul-de-sac, loud enough to make dogs bark the streets over. She demanded I put on proper attire immediately, claiming my bare chest was traumatizing the neighborhood and scaring children who might look out their windows. I pointed out that the only kids I had seen all day were playing video games indoors because of the heat, but she wasn't having it. When I slipped my tank top back on and asked her politely to leave my property, something in her seemed to snap. That's when she stormed onto my lawn, her sneakers leaving divots in the grass I'd spent hours perfecting. She zeroed in on the small American flag I'd planted near my marigolds, a gift from my dad after I bought the house. With one swift yank, she pulled it out, dirt flying everywhere, and waved it in my face like a prosecutor presenting Exhibit 8S. She shrieked, "You dare display this while dressed like a hooligan? You're disrespecting everything it stands for." The metal stake swung dangerously close to my nose as she gestured wildly, her voice hitting a pitch I didn't know was humanly possible. I took a deep breath, stepped back, and pointed to the security camera I'd installed under my roof's eave. After Karen's photo snapping spree began, its red light blinked steadily, recording every second of her meltdown. "Karen," I said calmly, "you're trespassing on my property, and that's all on video." Her eyes flicked to the camera, then back to me, her grip on the flag tightening until her knuckles turned white. Instead of backing down, she doubled down, declaring she had every right to be there as a member of the HOA Standards Committee, a committee I was 99% sure she'd invented. When I pulled out my phone to call the non-emergency police line, Karen laughed a sharp, brittle sound and said no cop would side with someone who couldn't even dress decently. I dialed anyway, speaking clearly to the dispatcher while Karen's voice boomed in the background, now adding disruption of community cohesion to my list of crimes. The dispatcher asked if I felt threatened, and I explained that while Karen hadn't touched me, she was refusing to leave, had damaged my landscaping, and was waving a metal stake in my face. I could hear the dispatcher's keyboard clicking as she took notes. Karen, undeterred, spotted my garden gnome quirky, hand-painted gift from my sister and decided it was her next target. "This tacky thing," she shouted, kicking it with enough force to send it crashing into my tulips. The gnome's fishing pole snapped in half, and I added vandalism to my report. By now, neighbors were starting to peek out, curtains twitching, garage doors creaking open. Mrs. Callahan was on her porch, pretending to water her plants, but clearly watching the show. Teenage Emma from down the street had her phone out, probably live streaming to her friends. The patrol car rolled up 7 minutes later, though it felt like an eternity with Karen's nonstop lecture about civic responsibility and moral decay. Officers Lopez and Carter stepped out, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and resignation, like they'd dealt with Karen's type before. Officer Lopez asked for a quick rundown, and I pointed to my camera while summarizing the chaos: Karen's trespassing, flag theft, and known destruction. Karen jumped in, waving the flag for emphasis and nearly smacking Officer Carter in the process. She insisted she was upholding HOA regulation and that my tank top was a public nuisance. I pulled up the security footage on my phone, showing the officers the clear sequence: Karen storming onto my lawn, ripping out the flag, and kicking my gnome. Officer Carter raised an eyebrow, and Officer Lopez asked Karen to return my flag and leave. She clutched it tighter, claiming she was confiscating it for the HOA board as evidence of my disrespect. When Officer Carter explained she had no legal authority to take my property, Karen invoked something she called neighborhood oversight privileges, which sounded like something she'd made up on the spot. The officer's patience was visibly thinning as the sun baked us all. Karen, oblivious, spotted my new solar garden lights and declared them another violation, though she couldn't say of what. When she moved to inspect them, Officer Lopez stepped in front of her, his voice firm. "Mom, do not touch anything else." Things escalated when Karen tried to push past him, claiming she needed to document my violations. That was the final straw. Officer Carter informed her she was under arrest for trespassing and vandalism. Pulling out handcuffs as Karen's face went from red to ghostly white, she sputtered about lawsuits. her connections at City Hall, and how this would ruin the officers' careers. But they were already guiding her to the patrol car. The cul-de-sac was now a full-blown audience, neighbors on porches, kids on bikes, even Mr. Rodriguez back with a lemonade in hand. As Karen was cuffed, she kept yelling about standards and the downfall of society, her voice echoing as they ducked her head into the car, through the window. I could see her still ranting, probably lecturing the back seat about property values. Officer Lopez returned my flag, its stake now slightly bent, and took my statement. He photographed the broken gnome for evidence and advised me to send the security footage for their report. 3 days later, a letter arrived from the Willow Creek HOA board. They apologized profusely, clarifying that there was no dress code for homeowners and that Karen's standards committee was a figment of her imagination. They discovered she'd been using fake HOA letterhead for months, sending unofficial notices to half the neighborhood about everything from mailbox colors to Christmas lights. The fallout didn't end there. Karen's arrest hit the local news, with my security footage somehow making its way to a viral video titled "HOA Karen Goes Too Far." The HOA held an emergency meeting, voting to bar Karen from any future board roles and nullifying all her fake enforcement actions. At her court hearing, Karen faced a $600 fine for vandalism. My gnome was apparently a collector's item, and $250 for trespassing. The judge also sentenced her to 50 hours of community service with a local group promoting neighborhood inclusivity. Karen's face cycled through shock, anger, and resignation as the sentence was read, her lighter whispering that she'd gotten off lightly. The weeks leading up to that Saturday had been a slow burn of Karen's escalating antics. It wasn't just me she targeted, though I seemed to be her favorite. She left a note on Mrs. Callahan's car about her tasteless flamingo lawn ornament. She lectured young Emma about her skateboard, claiming it was too loud for the cul-de-sac. Even Mr. Rodriguez got a tap letter about his vegetable garden being divisible from the street. Each time, the HOA board dismissed her complaints, but Karen's determination only grew. I started keeping a log of her actions after the first complaint, mostly for my own sanity. Week 1, photos from her driveway. Week 2, loud phone calls about neighborhood decline. Week 3, the first HOA grievance, complete with a blurry photo of me mowing in my tank top. By week 4, she was emailing the board daily, each message longer and more unhinged. One claimed my tank top was encouraging delinquency among the neighborhood teens. Another suggested I was lowering property values by parading around half naked. The board's responses were curt: "No violation found. Please cease frivolous complaints." But Karen was like a dog with a bone. I upgraded my security system after the photo snapping started, adding a second camera to cover the backyard. My brother, a tech guy, helped me set up a cloud backup so I'd have evidence if things escalated. He laughed when I told him about Karen, saying she sounded like a sitcom villain. I didn't laugh. I was too busy checking my mailbox for her next passive-aggressive note. The neighborhood started taking sides, though most people just wanted to stay out Karen's crosshairs. Mrs. Callahan slipped me a batch of her famous oatmeal cookies. As a hang-in-there gesture, Mr. Rodriguez offered to let me hide my mower in his garage if Karen got too aggressive. Even Emma, the skateboard kid, started giving me a thumbs up whenever she rode by, like we were in some secret anti-Karen alliance. The support was nice, but it didn't stop Karen's campaign. That Saturday wasn't the first time Karen had confronted me directly. 2 weeks earlier, she'd marched over while I was trimming my hedges, demanding I cover up because her book club was meeting on her patio, and my tank top was distracting. I pointed out that her patio was 50 feet away and shielded by a privacy fence, but she just huffed and stormed off. The next day, a note appeared in my mailbox, typed on fake HOA letterhead, warning me about inappropriate attire. I laughed it off, but I was starting to feel like I was living in a surveillance state. The flag incident was just the tipping point. Karen's obsession with my tank top had become a neighborhood legend, whispered about at barbecues and garage sales. People started calling her tank top Karen behind her back, and I heard through the grapevine that she'd been banned from the community pool last summer for trying to enforce a no bright colors rule she'd made up. Her husband, a quiet guy who always seemed embarrassed by her, had reportedly stopped coming to neighborhood events altogether. When the police arrived that Saturday, it wasn't just about my lawn or my flag. It was the culmination of months of Karen's unchecked power trip. The officer's body language said it all. They'd seen this before. Officer Lopez later told me they get calls about HOA disputes at least once a week, usually over something trivial like a mailbox color or a slightly overgrown shrub. But Karen's performance yanking a flag, kicking a gnome, and arguing with cops at a new bar for absurdity. After her arrest, the neighborhood buzzed for weeks. Mrs. Callahan started a group chat called Willow Creek Watch, where people shared stories of Karen's past antics, the time she tried to find someone for a tall sunflower, the day she measured a neighbor's fence with a tape measure at 7 a.m., the Christmas when she left notes about excessive twinkle lights. The chat was equal parts cathartic and hilarious, with emojis flying every time someone added a new Karen tale. The viral video didn't help Karen's case. Someone, probably Emma, had uploaded my security footage to a local news site, and it spread like wildfire. By the time it hit 100,000 views, people were leaving comments like "Tank Top Guy for President" and "Karen needs a hobby." I stayed out of the online fray, but I couldn't help but chuckle when I saw a meme of Karen's face photoshopped onto a dictator's body, captioned "All hail the HOA Queen." At the HOA meeting, the board laid out new rules to prevent future Karen-esque crusades. They required all official communications to use verified letterhead and banned self-appointed committees. They also sent out a neighborhood-wide email, reminding everyone that homeowners could wear whatever they wanted on their own property, within reason. I framed that email and hung it in my garage, right next to my mower. Karen's court hearing was the final chapter. I didn't attend, but Mrs. Callahan went and gave me the play-by-play. Karen tried to argue that she was protecting the community, but the judge wasn't impressed. The $600 fine for my gnome stung her. She apparently thought it was a $1.10 Walmart special, not a handcrafted piece worth $150. The community service was the real kicker. Karen spent her weekends planning community gardens with a group that emphasized inclusivity and respect, which must have felt like torture for someone who thrived on control. Life in Willow Creek settled down after that. Karen kept a low profile, her curtains staying firmly closed when I mowed. I replaced my gnome with a new one, a pirate-themed one this time, just to keep things spicy. Every now and then, I'd catch a neighbor grinning as they passed my yard, giving a nod to the guy who took down Tank Top Karen, and every Saturday, I'd slip on my trusty tank top, fire up the mower, and enjoy the freedom of my own lawn. No HOA dictator in sight.